Ladies and gentlemen, friends and fellow travelers on this wild, unpredictable journey of life, I stand before you today to talk about something raw, something real, something that sits in the quiet corners of our hearts and dares us to face it head on. The title of my speech, Stop Telling People Your Problems, No One Really Cares, might sound harsh, might even sting a little, but stay with me. This isn't about cynicism or shutting down. It's about courage, self-ownership, and the radical act of reclaiming your story. It's about learning when to share, why to share, and how to hold space for yourself in a world that often feels too busy to listen. Let's dive into this together with open hearts and fearless spirits and unpack what it means to navigate our struggles in a way that honors both our vulnerability and our strength. First, let's acknowledge the truth that sits at the core of this idea. We all want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want someone to look at us in the midst of our mess and say, I get it. I'm here. It's human nature to seek connection, to reach out when the weight of our problems feels too heavy to carry alone. And there's nothing wrong with that longing. It's what makes us beautifully and perfectly human. But here's the hard part. Not everyone is equipped to hold your story. Not everyone has the capacity, the empathy, or the willingness to sit with you in your pain. And that's not because they're cruel or heartless. It's because they're human too, wrestling with their own burdens, their own chaos, their own unspoken battles. When we pour our hearts out to anyone who will listen, we're often searching for validation, for relief, for someone to take the edge off our suffering. But the reality is, oversharing can sometimes leave us feeling more exposed, more vulnerable, and frankly, more alone. It's like casting a net into the ocean, hoping to catch something solid, only to pull it back empty. The truth is, not everyone is ready to receive your truth, and that's okay. It doesn't diminish your worth or the weight of what you're carrying. It just means you need to be discerning about who you invite into your sacred space. Now, let's pause and consider what it means to share our problems. Sharing isn't inherently bad. It's how we build trust, how we forge bonds, how we remind each other that we're not alone in this messy, beautiful thing called life. But there's a difference between sharing with intention and unloading without thought. When we tell everyone our problems without considering whether they're ready or able to hold them, we risk diluting our own story. We risk turning our pain into background noise, something people tune out because they've heard it too many times. And that's not what we want. We want our stories to matter. We want them to land with weight and meaning. So how do we decide who to share with? How do we know who's worthy of our vulnerability? It starts with trust, not just in others, but in ourselves. Trust that you have the wisdom to choose your confidants carefully. Trust that you can hold your own pain even when it feels unbearable. Trust that you don't need everyone to understand your struggle in order to feel valid. The people who deserve your story are the ones who've earned the right to hear it. The ones who show up, who listen without judgment, who hold space for you even when it's hard. They're the ones who don't just hear your words, but feel the weight of them. But here's the flip side. Even the most empathetic, loving people in your life have limits. They have their own struggles, their own exhaustion, their own stories they're trying to navigate. When we lean too heavily on others, expecting them to carry our burdens, we can inadvertently create distance instead of connection. It's not that they don't care, it's that they're human, and humans gets overwhelmed. Humans get tired. Humans sometimes need space to breathe. Recognizing this isn't about shutting down or closing off. It's about respecting the boundaries of those we love and learning to carry our own weight when we need to. Let's talk about what it means to carry our own weight. This isn't about stoicism or pretending everything's fine when it's not. It's about building resilience, about cultivating an inner strength that allows you to sit with your problems without needing someone else to fix them. It's about learning to be your own safe harbor, your own soft place to land. This kind of self-reliance isn't easy. It takes practice, patience, and a whole lot of grace. But it's also empowering. It reminds you that you are capable, that you are enough, that you don't need external validation to know your worth. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but what about community? What about connection? Aren't we supposed to lean on each other? Absolutely. Yes, community is vital. Connection is the heartbeat of what makes us human. But there's a difference between leaning on others and expecting them to carry you. Healthy connection is a two-way street. It's about showing up for each other, holding space for each other, and recognizing that everyone's carrying something. When we share our problems with the expectation that someone else will solve them, we're not building connection, we're creating dependency. And that's not fair to them or to us. Let's get real for a moment about why we overshare. Sometimes it's not just about seeking connection, it's about avoidance. It's easier to tell everyone your problems than to sit with them yourself. It's easier to externalize your pain than to look it in the eye and say, okay, what are you here to teach me? Facing our struggles head on is hard, messy work. It requires us to be honest with ourselves, to confront the parts of our story we'd rather ignore. But it's also where growth happens. It's where we find clarity, resilience, and the courage to keep going. When we stop telling everyone our problems, we create space for introspection. We give ourselves the chance to process, to reflect, to understand what's really going on beneath the surface. This doesn't mean you have to do it alone. Therapists, counselors, and trusted friends are there for a reason, but it does mean taking responsibility for your own emotional work. It means recognizing that no one else can do the heavy lifting for you. And that's not a burden. It's a gift. It's the gift of agency, of knowing that you have the power to shape your own story. Let's talk about the cultural pressures that make this so hard. We live in a world that glorifies oversharing, where social media invites us to broadcast our every thought, feeling, and struggle to the world. We're told that vulnerability is strength, that authenticity means laying it all bare. And while there's truth to that, there's also a shadow side. When we share without boundaries, we risk losing the sacredness of our story. We risk turning our pain into a performance, something we do for likes, comments, or validation. And that's not vulnerability, it's exposure. True vulnerability, the kind that transforms us, is intentional. It's choosing to share your truth with the right people at the right time in the right way. It's knowing that your story is worth protecting, that it doesn't need to be shouted from the rooftops to be valid. It's trusting that the people who matter will show up, not because you demanded their attention, but because they genuinely care. And it's also about showing up for yourself, about being the first person to hold space for your own pain. Let's explore what it looks like to hold space for ourselves. It starts with self-compassion, treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd offer a dear friend. It means sitting with your problems, not as a punishment, but as an act of love. It means asking yourself, what do I need right now? What's the next right step? Sometimes that step is reaching out to someone you trust. Sometimes it's journaling, meditating, or taking a walk to clear your head. Sometimes it's simply giving yourself permission to feel what you feel without judgment. Self-compassion isn't about fixing your problems or making them disappear. It's about being present with them, about saying, this is hard and I'm here for it. It's about recognizing that your struggles don't define you, but they do shape you. They teach you resilience, empathy, and the kind of wisdom that only comes from walking through the fire. When you learn to hold space for yourself, you become less dependent on others to validate your experience. You become your own anchor, your own lighthouse, guiding yourself through the storm. But let's be honest, holding space for ourselves is hard. It's easier to distract ourselves, to numb out, to seek solace in the opinions of others. We live in a culture that tells us to keep moving, to stay productive, to get over it and move on. But healing doesn't work that way. Growth doesn't work that way. You can't rush through your pain or outsource it to someone else. You have to sit with it, feel it, let it move through you. And that takes courage, the kind of courage that doesn't make headlines but changes lives. When we stop telling everyone our problems, we also create space for others to share theirs. Think about it. How many times have you been so focused on your own struggles that you miss the quiet pain in someone else's eyes? When we're constantly unloading, we're not always present to listen. But when we practice discernment, when we choose when and how to share, we become better listeners, better friends, better partners. We create a ripple effect of empathy, of mutual support, of genuine connection. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. It just means showing up as your whole, messy, beautiful self and trusting that that's enough. It means recognizing that your problems matter, but they don't have to dominate every conversation. It means finding a balance between vulnerability and strength, between sharing and holding back, between leaning on others and standing on your own. Let's talk about the freedom that comes with this balance. When you stop expecting everyone to care about your problems, you liberate yourself from the need for external validation. You stop chasing approval and start trusting your own voice. You realize that your worth isn't tied to how many people understand your struggle or how many likes your post gets. Your worth is inherent, unshakable, rooted in the simple fact that you are here, showing up, doing the work. This freedom allows you to show up differently in the world. You become more present, more grounded, more attuned to the people around you. You start to notice the small moments of connection, the way a friend's eyes light up when they talk about their passion, the quiet strength of a stranger who's carrying their own unseen burdens. You become a better listener, a better supporter, a better human. And that's the gift of discernment. It's not just about protecting your own story. It's about creating space for others to tell theirs. But let's not romanticize this. Discernment is hard. It requires you to set boundaries, to say no, to walk away from relationships or spaces that don't serve you. It requires you to face your own discomfort, to sit with the fear that maybe no one will show up if you don't overshare. It requires you to trust that your story is enough, even if only a few people ever hear it. And that's not easy. It's a practice, a daily choice, a commitment to showing up for yourself in a way that honors your truth. So, how do we cultivate this discernment? It starts with awareness. Pay attention to how you feel when you share your problems. Do you feel lighter, more connected? Or do you feel exposed, anxious, like you've given away a piece of yourself? Notice who shows up for you, who listens with their whole heart, who makes you feel seen. Notice who doesn't. And then make choices based on that awareness. Choose to share with the people who've earned your trust. Choose to hold back when it feels right. Choose to trust yourself above all else. This practice of discernment is also about timing. There's a time to share and a time to hold back. There's a time to seek support and a time to stand on your own. Learning to read those moments, to listen to your own intuition, is a powerful act of self-love. It's a way of saying, I trust myself to know what I need. And that trust is the foundation of resilience, of growth, of a life lived with intention and courage. Let's talk about the stories we tell ourselves when we overshare. Sometimes we convince ourselves that if we just explain our problems enough, someone will finally understand. Someone will finally fix it. But the truth is, no one can fix your pain. No one can walk your path for you. And that's not a failure, it's a truth. Your journey is yours, and while others can walk beside you, recognizing this is an act of empowerment, a way of reclaiming your story and saying, this is mine, and I'm strong enough to hold it. This doesn't mean you have to do it alone, far from it. It means building a support system of people who show up, who listen, who remind you that you're not alone. It means seeking out professional help when you need it. Therapists, counselors, coaches who are trained to hold space for your story. It means finding communities that resonate with your values, that lift you up, that remind you of your strength. It means knowing that you don't have to tell everyone your problems to feel supported. Let's explore the role of gratitude in this journey. When we focus too much on our problems, it's easy to lose sight of what's working, what's beautiful, what's worth celebrating. Gratitude doesn't erase pain, but it shifts our perspective. It reminds us that even in the midst of struggle, there's light, there's love, there's hope. Practicing gratitude, whether through journaling, meditation, or simply pausing to notice the small joys, helps us balance our narrative. It helps us tell a fuller, richer story, one that includes both the shadows and the light. Gratitude also helps us connect with others in a more meaningful way. When we share our struggles alongside our joys, we create a more authentic, more relatable story. We invite others to do the same, to show up as their whole selves, not just their pain. This kind of sharing builds bridges, not walls. It creates a sense of shared humanity, a reminder that we're all in this together, carrying our own burdens, chasing our own dreams. Let's talk about the power of silence. Sometimes the most radical act of self-care is choosing not to share. It's sitting with your problems, holding them close, letting them teach you. Silence isn't about repression or denial. It's about trust. Trust that you don't need to broadcast your pain to make it real. Trust that you can carry it, process it, learn from it. Trust that your story is sacred, even when it's unspoken. This silence is also a gift to others. It creates space for them to share, to be heard, to feel seen. It's a way of saying, I'm here for you just as you've been here for me. It's a reminder that connection isn't just about talking. It's about listening, about presence, about showing up in a way that honors both your story and theirs. Let's address the fear that comes with this. The fear that if we stop sharing, we'll be alone. The fear that if we don't tell everyone our problems, no one will care. This fear is real and it's valid, but it's also a story we can rewrite. The truth is, the people who matter will show up, not because you've broadcast your pain, but because they see you. They see your strength, your resilience, your heart, and those are the people worth sharing with. This fear often stems from a deeper belief that we're not enough, that our worth depends on how much others validate us, but that's a lie. Your worth is inherent, unshakable, rooted in the simple fact that you exist. You don't need to prove it to anyone. You don't need to share your problems to earn love or respect. You are enough just as you are, problems and all. Let's talk about the practical side of this. How do you stop oversharing in a world that encourages it? Start small. Pause before you speak. Ask yourself, why am I sharing this? What do I need right now? If the answer is validation or relief, consider whether there's another way to meet that need. Journaling, therapy, a trusted friend. If the answer is connection, choose your audience carefully. Share with the people who've shown they can hold your story with care. Another practical step is setting boundaries. This might mean limiting how much you share on social media or being intentional about who you confide in. It might mean saying, I'm struggling, but I'm not ready to talk about it yet. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates. They let you decide who comes in and who stays out, protecting your story while still allowing for connection. Let's explore the role of curiosity in this process. When we stop telling everyone our problems, we create space to get curious about them. What's underneath this pain? What's driving this fear? What's this struggle trying to teach me? Curiosity transforms our problems from burdens into teachers. It invites us to dig deeper, to uncover the lessons, to find meaning in the mess. This curiosity also extends to others. When we're not consumed by our own narrative, we can get curious about the people around us. What's their story? What are they carrying? How can I show up for them? This kind of curiosity builds empathy, connection, and a sense of shared humanity. It reminds us that we're all in this together, navigating our own struggles, chasing our own light. Let's talk about the long game. Stopping oversharing isn't just about the present. It's about building a life of intention, resilience, and authenticity. It's about creating a narrative that honors your truth, that reflects your strength, that inspires others to do the same. It's about trusting that your story matters, even when it's hard, even when it's messy, even when it's unspoken. This long game requires patience. It requires grace. It requires you to show up for yourself day after day, even when it's hard, but it's worth it. Because when you learn to hold your own story, to share it with discernment, to trust in your own worth, you become unstoppable. You become a force of love, of courage, of light. You become someone who doesn't just survive their problems, but thrives through them. And let's address the critics in the room, the ones who say, but sharing is how we connect. Vulnerability is strength. And they're not wrong. Vulnerability is strength. Sharing is how we connect. But it's not about sharing everything with everyone. It's about sharing wisely, intentionally, with the people who've earned the right to hear it. It's about protecting the sacredness of your story, not because it's weak, but because it's powerful. This approach to vulnerability doesn't diminish your strength, it amplifies it. It says, I'm strong enough to hold my own pain. I'm brave enough to choose who I share it with. I'm wise enough to know that my worth doesn't depend on how many people understand me. That's not weakness, that's power, that's courage. That's the kind of vulnerability that changes lives. Let's talk about the ripple effect of this work. When you stop telling everyone your problems, you model a different way of being. You show others what it looks like to hold space for yourself, to set boundaries, to share with intention. You inspire them to do the same, to reclaim their own stories, to trust in their own strength. You create a culture of authenticity, of empathy, of mutual respect. This ripple effect extends beyond your immediate circle. It shapes the way you show up in the world, the way you lead, the way you love. It reminds others that they don't have to perform their pain to be seen, that they don't have to broadcast their struggles to be valid. It creates a world where stories are honored, where vulnerability is sacred, where connection is built on trust and mutual care. Let's talk about the joy that comes with this. Yes, joy. Because when you stop oversharing, you create space for lightness, for laughter, for the moments that make life worth living. You're not defined by your problems. You're defined by your resilience, your courage, your capacity for love. You're free to show up as your whole self, not just the parts that hurt. And that's where joy lives, in the fullness of who you are. This joy isn't about ignoring your problems or pretending they don't exist. It's about holding them with grace, about trusting that they're part of your story, but not the whole of it. It's about knowing that you can carry your pain and still chase your dreams, still laugh with your friends, still find beauty in the world. It's about living fully, even in the midst of struggle. Let's talk about the legacy of this work. When you choose discernment, when you honor your story, you're not just changing your own life, you're changing the lives of those around you. You're teaching your children, your friends, your community what it looks like to live with intention, to love with boundaries, to show up with courage. You're leaving a legacy of strength, of authenticity, of grace. This legacy isn't about perfection. It's about showing up day after day and doing the work. It's about being honest about your struggles, brave about your boundaries, and generous with your love. It's about trusting that your story matters, that your voice matters, that you matter. And that's a legacy worth building. Let's bring this home. Stopping telling everyone your problems isn't about closing off or shutting down. It's about opening up to yourself, to your strength, to the people who truly matter. It's about trusting that you are enough, that your story is enough, that you don't need to prove it to anyone. It's about living with intention, with courage, with a heart wide open to the mess and the beauty of this life. So, my friends, I invite you to take this challenge. Be discerning with your story. Share it with love, with wisdom, with trust. Hold space for yourself and for others. Trust that you are capable, that you are worthy, that you are enough, and know that in every moment, in every struggle, in every quiet victory, you are writing a story that matters. A story of resilience, of grace, of unshakable courage. Thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being part of this messy, beautiful human journey. Let's keep showing up, keep trusting ourselves, keep writing our stories with love and courage. The world needs your light. Let it shine.